Hello and welcome to this SFCC library video tutorial on how to create an annotated bibliography using the APA style. A lot of the information that we will be talking about in this video is also available on the citation guide, which is available at libguides.spokanefalls.edu/cite. How is this video going to help you? Well, for your annotated bibliography assignment, you are going to need to cite your sources using APA style. And this lesson will show you how to create a references page, and will also explain what can be included in an annotation. So in this video, we're going to talk about what is an annotated bibliography, formatting a references page, 5 basic steps to creating a citation, citation formulas and generators, and then the annotation paragraph. So let's begin with what is an annotated bibliography. Well, basically it's a references page of the sources that you plan on using in your project. It also is going to include an assessment of that source, and that's what we refer to as the annotation. So very simply, you're going to provide the full source citation and you're going to provide an annotation paragraph. What you include in that annotation paragraph, I will explain later in the video. So here is an example of an annotated bibliography. You can see here on our citation guide, I'm just going to scroll down to the one for APA. You'll notice, right, it says annotated bibliography. Here is that full citation entry, and then here is a paragraph annotation, which sort of either describes or evaluates the source. So let's begin with how you actually create the references page. When you are creating a references page, I actually like to kind of start at the end, pretending that you have already created all of the individual entries, but how do you actually format all of the source entries into the references page? And so you'll see this example on the screen. Some common formatting rules to pay attention to for APA 7th is that at the top of the page, it will be called references. If this is an annotated bibliography, your instructor may want you to title it annotated bibliography, like we just saw in the previous example. But the next is that each entry is going to be listed alphabetically by first word. This is often the author's last name, but sometimes if you don't have a named author, it will start with perhaps an article title or the title of the publication. And if that's the case, once again, we're just looking at that first word and listing it alphabetically. Something to pay attention to is if the first word is an, or the, we'll ignore that and move to the first major word of the article title. The next thing to remember is that the first line of the entry starts on the margin and all additional lines are indented. This is what we call a hanging indent. And if you're not sure how to create a hanging indent in your word processing program, I recommend doing a YouTube search for hanging indent and Microsoft Word, or hanging indent and Pages, or hanging indent and Google Doc. And I'm sure you will find some sort of video that will explain how to create that hanging indent. The next thing is that all of your entries are double spaced. There are no extra spaces between the entries. They are not single spaced. Everything is double spaced. Some additional formatting rules to pay attention to for APA 7th is that when you are listing the names of the authors, you do not write out their full first name. You are just going to use their initials. The next thing you'll notice is that when you are writing article titles, you're going to use what we refer to as sentence capitalization. This means that you're going to capitalize like the first word and any proper nouns or adjectives that appear. So in the example on the screen here, you'll see that the article title was called Using Student Test Scores to Measure Teacher Performance, and that we wrote just like it was a regular sentence. Okay. When it comes to the name of the whole publication, or the title of the whole publication, or the title of the whole website, you are going to italicize that. There are other rules related to formatting, but these are the most common ones that we encounter when it comes to APA 7th. If you're curious about other rules, I encourage you to refer to an APA style guide. So now we're going to talk about the 5 steps to creating a citation. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to choose a style format. In this video, we're talking about APA, so we're going to choose APA style. Step 2, we're going to identify the source type. Step 3, we're going to talk about the access point. Step 4, you're going to find the formula that matches that source type and that access point. So you're going to combine steps 2 and 3. And then finally, in step 5, you're going to create the citation. You're going to use a style guide or a citation generator and plug in the information into the correct formula that you found. Now, I know we talked about it being 5 steps, but honestly, I would say step 2 is probably one of the more difficult steps in this process. When we're talking about source types, we are not necessarily talking about, hey, I read it on a website. What we want to know is the actual genre of that source that you found online. Okay. For instance, is it a newspaper article? Is it a magazine article? Is it a journal article? Is it a book? Is it a video, a lecture, a discussion board? How you access it often is online on a website nowadays. So, for example, you may have read a Spokesman Review article online. The Spokesman Review is a newspaper. So the source type is newspaper, your access point is online. Okay. If the content was very specifically created for a website, okay, that information doesn't exist in another, PDF file. It wasn't published in a magazine. It wasn't, done as a video, whatever, something like that, then it might actually be the source type of web page content. But a lot of times your source type is something specific and then your access point is online. So if you're not familiar with different source types, that is a whole other lesson. But here are some hints to help you identify a source type. You can Google the publication name. So for instance, if you Google the Inlander, Google will tell you, oh, this is, a community newspaper in the Spokane area. So now I know my source type is newspaper. You can also look at the URL. The URL is the web address at the top of the screen. And sometimes you'll see in that web address something like blog. Okay, then my source type is blog. Or it may say something like issues. And if I see the word issues, in my head, I'm thinking, oh, perhaps this means it's a magazine or a journal because those tend to have issues. You can also look at the About Us for perhaps some information. They may say, oh, we are the website for the magazine publication or something like that. You can also look for other indicators on the web page. For instance, they might have a picture of the current print publication cover. They may say something like, oh, click here to access the archives of our previous magazine issues or whatever, something like that. So look for those types of indicators. If you are using a database, databases are very helpful in helping you identify source types. They will usually have some sort of little icon. It might have a little graduation cap. That means it's a scholarly journal, or it may have an icon that looks like a newspaper, something like that. And then, or if they're not using an icon, you can usually find something about like details of the source of the result that you're looking at. You might have something about like details. If you click on that, they'll usually tell you the source type. Another option is you can go to the SFCC library research guides and click on the research and resourcing guides, and you will find links to more information about source types. So now that we've talked about step 2, identifying the source type, the next thing we want to talk about is when we combine steps 2 and 3 to find the formula. So for instance, if we were watching a video on YouTube, okay, it's not a web page, that's not the formula I'm looking for. I'm going to look for the formula for video online. Or if I'm citing something my instructor said in class, I'm going to do a class lecture. that I attended in real life. Or maybe it was a journal article that I saw in a database. Once I've identified that formula, okay, actually, how do we go about finding those formulas? Okay, so now that we know we're looking for a video online or journal in a database, how do we actually find the formula? And so once again, don't forget we have that citation guide that you can go to. And when you go to the citation guide currently, I would click on where it says APA formulas and formatting. And this is where I can find a lot of these formulas online. Okay, this is the official APA style guide. It's a print manual. But if I'm working at home and I just want to look at one online, I really like the Williams College APA style. This is nice because on the left-hand side, they'll say, oh, you were looking at a journal article? Well, here's the example for articles. Oh, look, a journal article. Here is the formula that you want to follow. Or for instance, if we said it was a blog, I can click where it says blog and I'll say, was it a web page? No. Oh, it was a blog post. There's the formula that I would want to follow for a blog post. There's other places that you can look. Here's some other examples. You can go to OWL at Purdue. You can go to some citation generators for help with formulas. But in general, I like the Williams College website. Once you find the formula, then you're going to actually create the citation. You're going to plug in that information to that formula. But nowadays, a lot of us like to use citation generators. So let me introduce you to two citation generators that I particularly like. The first one is called Noodle Tools Express. I like this one because it's free, it's not very busy, and it provides me a lot of different source type options, as well as providing me the specific formula for that particular source type. So we do have a citation playlist where you can find video tutorials very specifically on Noodle Tools Express. But just so you have an example of what it looks like, here we are. It only gives you 3 citation styles. I would click, okay, I'm using APA. When I choose, I have a lot of different citation options that I can choose here. The most common ones are at the top. Let's say it was a journal article that I was citing. Okay, right? That's step 2, my source type. Create citation. Step 3, did I look at that journal in print, on a website, and a database? Let's say it was a database. Then I would plug in all the information that it's asking for and click save. Then I would copy and paste that generated citation into a Word document, Pages, Google Docs, something like that. Now I am just going to point out right here that up here in the corner is a plus sign, and that's where I could find the actual formula for the particular source type and access point. So this is helpful for when you have to double check a citation, so that's why I point it out. MyBib is another citation generator that's really nice. A lot of people like this one. Once again, it's free, but it allows you, if you want to create an account, okay, and that's up to you to decide if you want to create an account, read the terms of agreement, etc. But you can add multiple sources to a project, and when you're finished, you can actually download the entire bibliography. So if you've never looked at MyBib before, I happen to be signed in, so we're just going to pretend this is kind of what it would look like, you know, if you were just starting out. Up here, they give you a lot of different citation style formats. Okay, we're using APA 7th, so that's what I have. Then you would just click Add Citation, and they give you, you know, I'm going to say what they think are the common ones that people are using, but notice there is a button that says More that gives you other options. Something to point out here is that you can drop in a URL and it will pull a lot of the information for you. Once again, that information may not always be 100%, but I just want you to realize that that is an option in MyBib, that you can drop in a URL and it will populate a lot of that information for you. So here's an example where I have already put together a number of sources. And if you want to see what the screen looks like, this is where I would, you know, plug in all of that information, and they'll even give you a little preview at the bottom. Something that MyBib does for free is you can write your annotation right here into MyBib, and they will attach it to that source so that when you're finished and you click on download references, it will provide you a formatted annotated bibliography with the source citation and the paragraph. Please notice not everything is 100%. I point out on this particular example, remember when I was talking about formatting your APA citations, your APA references page, that you're going to list it in alphabetical order by first word, but you ignore the word the. This one did not ignore the word the. So if I were to download this and I was going to be handing it in for an assignment, I would need to just move this particular entry above this one because G for gender comes before H for Hannah. Once again, if you go to our YouTube page, youtube.com/@the SFCC library, you will find a citation playlist that will provide you video tutorials on how to use Noodle Tools Express, how to use MyBib, and also how to double check a citation generator. Because generators do make mistakes. You just saw on MyBib that they didn't necessarily do the alphabetical order correctly. Generators, once again, a lot of times you're inputting the information, so they're only as good as the information that you're inputting. If you are using and dropping in a URL, sometimes the way that it pulls the data from that URL is also inaccurate, so you must double check them. I do encourage you, if you're not sure how to double check a generated citation, go to our citation playlist. There is a video about how to double check citation generators. Okay, so once again, go to youtube.com/@the SFCC library, and you will find citation videos there. So now that we've talked about actually creating your reference page, how you can use a citation generator to create your full citation entry, let's go back to very specifically the annotated bibliography. What is the purpose of an annotated bibliography? And it shows that you have engaged with your sources and thought critically about their content and their relevance to your project. So in order to do an annotated bibliography, you must have read the article, viewed the video, looked at the charts, the statistics, whatever the source is that you're looking at, you must have engaged with it. It doesn't mean, hey, I got this result and I'm going to just, provide the citation and say, yeah, I really like it. No, you actually have to think critically about the content and its relevance to your particular project. An annotated bibliography is also how you get to show your work. You are explaining the value and the validity of the source, okay? And a lot of times, not a lot of times, the value and the validity of the source is very much tied to how you plan on using that source in your project. So depending on what your ultimate assignment or what the overall assignment was, what indicates the value of the source is going to be very dependent on how you plan on using that source in your overall project. Also, an annotated bibliography provides your audience with more information about the sources for their own education, okay? As you may or may not know, a citation allows your audience to find that source itself. You are providing all the directions for how to find the source that you are looking at. With an annotated bibliography, not only are you telling your audience where they can find that particular source, but you're also giving sort of like think of it like a brief advertisement, right? That this is why I chose this source, or, this is why it's relevant. This is why I feel it's credible. You're giving just a little advertisement about that source to your audience. So when you're creating the annotated bibliography, we've already talked about how you create that citation entry. So now let's talk about the annotation paragraph itself. The annotation paragraph is where you assess the value of that particular source. So each source is going to have its own paragraph. Typically, your annotation paragraph can be informative or descriptive. That basically means that you're kind of just summarizing what that source is about and perhaps, why it's relevant to your research. Your critical or analytical annotation is going to talk more about your interpretation of that, why that particular source is important for your project, analyzing, or I would say like evaluating the source for credibility, really kind of digging in on the source itself, not necessarily just, hey, this is what the source said, but really investigating the source itself for authority, accuracy, etc. Or a lot of times your annotation paragraph will be some sort of combination of these things. You might provide some summary, but you're also going to provide some analysis. There's no one sure answer for what an annotation paragraph looks like. It ultimately is what your instructor is asking in the assignment. So you must consult your assignment for specific annotation requirements. And once again, I just sort of want to end the video with a reminder of what your annotated bibliography is going to look like. You're going to start with your full citation entry, right? Here's your full citation entry. And then underneath it is that annotation paragraph. Over here, annotated bibliography, once again, I start with my source citation and then my annotated paragraph. Notice, right, we've got that indenting. We have it alphabetically by first word. We're using, the initials, etc. So that is visually what your annotated bibliography should look like. So thank you for watching this video on annotated bibliographies using the APA style. Once again, just a couple of reminders. If you need more assistance with citation guides, you can, with citations, you can refer back to our guide at libguides.spokanefalls.edu/site, or you can use our 24/7 chat with a librarian. It's 24/7, any type of day. You can talk with, you can chat with a librarian that can, perhaps help you identify that source type when you're looking for the formula, or any other research questions. That's at bit.ly/SFCC libchat. Or you can book a one-on-one research consultation with an SFCC librarian. We offer 25-minute sessions in person or via Zoom, and you can book that at bit.ly/SFCC library research appointment. Notice the capitalization and the abbreviation in the URL.